The largest desert on Earth is hiding something. Beneath the dunes of the Sahara, beneath a sea of sand the size of the United States, there are riverbeds, lakebeds, the bleached bones of hippos and crocodiles, fishhooks, harpoons, the skeletons of human beings who once swam in water where there is now nothing but heat and silence. This is not a theory. It is one of the most solidly proven facts in earth science. For thousands of years, the Sahara was green, a landscape of grassland and lakes, monsoon rain and slow rivers, herds of elephants and giraffes, and people, thousands of them, living, fishing, herding, painting their world on the rock. And then the rain stopped. The water vanished. The sand came in. So here is the question that should keep you up tonight. If an entire green world is buried under that desert, what did its people build before the sand swallowed it whole? Start with the Sahara as it is now. 9 million square kilometers of desert, the largest hot desert on the planet. In places it can go years without measurable rain. Daytime temperatures climb past 50 degrees Celsius. It is, by any honest description, one of the most hostile environments a human being can stand in. And yet, the Sahara has not always been a desert. In fact, it has not always been a desert, even recently. Earth's climate runs on cycles. One of them is driven by a slow wobble in our planet's tilt and orbit, a rhythm that plays out over roughly 20,000 years. As that wobble shifts, it changes how much summer sunlight strikes the northern hemisphere. And when the north gets more summer sun, the great monsoon rains are pulled further north, deep into what is now the Sahara. When that happens, the desert blooms. Scientists call it the African humid period, or more simply, the Green Sahara. And the timing is the part that should stop you. The most recent Green Sahara was not in some unimaginably distant epoch. It ran roughly from about 11,000 years ago to around 5,000 years ago. That means the desert was green while human beings were building Göbekli Tepe. It was green for the first 3,000 years of the story of civilization. And it dried out right around the time the first Egyptian pharaohs came to power. This is not prehistory in some abstract sense. This overlaps with us. Now, extraordinary claims need evidence. So how do we actually know the Sahara was green? The proof is everywhere, and it is overwhelming. Start with the lakes. Satellite radar can see through dry sand to the bedrock beneath, and it has mapped enormous, ancient lake beds across the Sahara, including the ghost of one called Lake Megachad, a body of fresh water that, at its height, was larger than every great lake of North America combined. Then there are the bones. Across the desert, paleontologists and archaeologists have found the remains of animals that cannot survive without standing water. Crocodile bones, hippopotamus bones, fish, huge fish, in places that are now hundreds of kilometers from the nearest drop of permanent water. In one site in Niger called Gobero, excavators found something staggering. A graveyard, a lakeside cemetery used by human beings across thousands of years. Dozens of burials, men, women, children, laid to rest beside a lake that is now pure desert. And then there is the art. This is the part that gives the green Sahara a human face. All across the Sahara, in the Tassili Niger plateau of Algeria, in the mountains of Chad, in cave shelters scattered for thousands of kilometers, the people of the green era painted and carved their world onto the rock. And what they drew is not desert. They drew herds of cattle, giraffes, elephants, hippos. They drew people swimming in a place called today the Cave of Swimmers. Let's stand in the green Sahara for a moment. 8,000 years ago, picture it, where there is now nothing but dunes to the horizon. There is grassland, tall savanna grass moving in a wet wind. There are lakes wide enough to lose the far shore in haze. There are slow rivers, galleries of trees along the water. And there are people, not a few scattered wanderers, a whole world of them. The archaeology tells us how they lived. Early on in the green era, they were hunters and fishers. And the fishing was extraordinary. We find barbed bone harpoon points all across the Sahara, a shared fishing technology spanning thousands of kilometers. We find some of the oldest pottery in all of Africa, made by people who were not yet farmers, but who had so much fish and grain from the wild that they could settle down beside the water. Then, around 7,000 years ago, something changed across the green Sahara. The cattle came. Herding spread across the grasslands, domesticated cattle. And later, sheep and goats, tended by people who moved with their animals from pasture to pasture, water to water. And this is where the rock art explodes. An entire period of Saharan painting is so dominated by cattle that scholars simply call it the Bovidian or cattle period. Thousands of images of a pastoral civilization living large in a land that is now dead. Now here is where the bigger question begins to press. We have the herders, we have the fishers, we have the art, the pottery, the cemeteries. But the Sahara is enormous. We have surveyed a fraction of 1% of it. The interior is buried under hundreds of feet of moving sand. So when people ask, could there be more out there? Could there be something the herders built that we simply have not dug up? The honest answer is not no. The honest answer is we have barely looked. Let's be careful and precise here, because this is exactly the point where archaeology and the wilder theories part ways. We have no proven evidence of a great lost city under the Sahara. No verified pyramids. No buried metropolis. Anyone who tells you otherwise is ahead of the evidence. But, and this is the crucial but, absence of evidence in a desert this vast and this unexplored is not the same as evidence of absence. Consider the precedents. Satellite imaging has already rewritten Saharan archaeology once. Using radar and high-resolution imagery, researchers studying the Libyan desert found the lost towns of the Garamantes, a sophisticated ancient kingdom with fortified mud brick settlements and a remarkable underground irrigation system that flourished in what is now stark desert and had been largely forgotten. The Garamantes are real. They are confirmed. And they were found because someone finally looked from above. So apply that to the green era. The Garamantes lived after the Sahara dried. They built in a desert. The people of the green Sahara lived in a land of water and grass for thousands of years. They had the population. They had the time. They had organized, settled, water-rich communities. If a desert kingdom left whole towns to be rediscovered, what might thousands of years of lakeside green era life have left behind, now sealed under sand that no radar has yet swept? And here is where the ancient aliens crowd leans in close. And honestly, I see the appeal. Because a vast desert hiding a lost green world is the perfect canvas for the imagination. Some have looked at certain rock paintings, the strange, round-headed figures of the early Saharan art, painted with what some call halos or helmets, and seen visitors from elsewhere. The mainstream reading is far more grounded. Those figures are almost certainly spiritual, shamans, masked dancers, beings from the painter's own myths. But the fringe is not entirely wrong about one thing. There is something out there. It just is not aliens. It is us. Let's talk about the ending. Because every green world in this story has one. Around 5,500 years ago, the slow orbital wobble that had pulled the monsoon north began to reverse. The summer rains retreated southward, and the green Sahara began to die. For a long time, the picture of that ending was a gentle one. A slow, smooth fade over many centuries. But more recent studies of seabed sediment cores, dust blown off Africa and settled on the ocean floor, suggest the truth was harsher in places. Parts of the Sahara may have dried far faster than anyone expected. In some regions, the shift from green to desert unfolding within a few centuries. Possibly faster. Fast enough that people would have watched their lakes disappear within living memory. So picture the last generations of the Green Sahara. You are a herder. Your grandparents told you about a lake that is now a salt flat. The pasture your family used is dust. The rains come later each year, and then some years they do not come at all. The herds grow thin. The fish are gone. And slowly, over generations, the people of the green world are forced to do the only thing they can. They follow the water. They move south toward the Sahel and east toward a long green river called the Nile. And this is the part that connects everything. Many archaeologists now believe that the drying of the Sahara was an engine of history. As the desert spread, it pushed scattered green world peoples into the narrow, fertile valley of the Nile. It concentrated them. It forced them together along a single ribbon of water. And out of that pressure, that crowding, that gathering of refugees from a dying land, within a few centuries rose the kingdom of the pharaohs. Egypt may be the child of the Green Sahara's death. Now we come to the strangest, most unsettling part of the Green Sahara story. It is not what was lost. It is how it was lost. Because the desert is not just a place where a green world ended. The desert is the thing that buried it. Think about what sand does. It is the perfect preservative and the perfect concealer at once. Dry sand is gentle. It does not rot what it covers. Unlike water, unlike acidic soil, dry desert sand can hold an object, wood, fiber, bone, even a human body, in near perfect condition for thousands of years. That sand also moves. It drifts, it flows. It piles up meters deep, hundreds of meters deep, and it hides everything beneath it completely. So the Sahara is, in effect, a vault the size of a continent. And we hold the key only in the few places where the wind has chosen to uncover something. A skeleton exposed by a shifting dune. A scatter of harpoons revealed for a season before the sand takes them back. Everything we know about the Green Sahara, we know from the desert's edges, from the rare windows the wind blows open. The deep interior, the heart of where the green world lived, is sealed. We are reading the first page of a book 10,000 pages long. And so the honest position, the one a careful person has to hold, is a kind of patience. We should not invent a lost civilization the evidence does not support. But we also should not pretend the question is closed. The Green Sahara was real. Its people were real. They were numerous, settled, and organized for longer than recorded history has existed since. what they made, what they built, what they left at the water's edge before the water vanished. Most of that answer is still out there, under the sand, waiting for the wind or the radar to find it. Before we close, let me tell you the part of this story that almost nobody expects. The Green Sahara is not only the past, it is also the future. The orbital cycle that greened the Sahara has not stopped. It is still turning. On a timescale of roughly 20,000 years, the wobble in Earth's tilt will once again swing the northern summer toward more sunlight, and the monsoon rains will once again be pulled north into the desert. Scientists who model this are fairly confident in something like 15,000 years, give or take, the Sahara will turn green again, on its own, as it has many, many times before. Now sit with what that means for the story we have been telling. The desert we think of as eternal is a phase, a mood the land is in. The Sahara has cycled between green and gold many times across hundreds of thousands of years, and human beings and our ancestors before us were there for many of those cycles. Every green phase was a chance for people to spread across it. Every drying phase sealed whatever they left back under the sand. The Sahara is not one lost world. It may be a stack of them. Green world upon green world upon green world. Here is what I keep coming back to. We build our picture of the deep human past from the places that stayed habitable. The river valleys, the temperate lands, the spots where people could keep living long enough to be remembered. But the Green Sahara tells us something humbling. Sometimes an entire world, a whole green, water-rich, people-filled world can simply be switched off. The rain moves, the land dies, the sand comes in, and a chapter of the human story is closed and buried before anyone thinks to write it down. The Sahara is the largest, clearest example of a truth that runs through everything on this channel. The map of our past has holes in it, not small holes, continental ones. Lost to water in the case of the drowned coastlines, and lost to sand in the case of the Sahara. The people of the green era were every bit as human, as capable, as curious as the people who built the pyramids their descendants would build. They simply had the bad luck to live in a world that the climate decided to erase. The Green Sahara is not just a chapter of Earth science. It is a buried question, the size of a continent. It asks whether the story we tell about where civilization began is the whole story, or only the part that happen to stay green. Before history, there was a garden where the desert is now. Its people fished and herded and painted for thousands of years. And then the sand closed over all of it. And it is down there still, sealed, silent, waiting for the rain to come back. If this episode shifted something in your head about how much of our past is buried under sand, about how recently an entire green world vanished, then know that the Sahara is only one lost landscape among many. The drowned coastlines under the sea, the buried river valleys, the forgotten kingdoms waiting for radar to find them. An entire hidden geography of the human story, scattered under sand and water all over the earth. If you want to come along as we map what was lost, subscribe to Before History, because the further back we look, the more the desert turns out to be hiding. See you in the next one.